So one of the most searched things on Google when it comes to marketing agency is how much do digital marketing agencies charge in Australia? As an agency owner, in this video, I'm going to kind of demystify and kind of give you the inside scoop on how agency pricing typically works, some of the pitfalls and things you need to look out for, and how do you really assess whether your price that you're getting is good value and which provider you may want to go with. So like any service, it is a case of you get what you pay for, but there are some more subtle intricacies as part of that. So in terms of pricing, it probably comes into three main buckets. So you have entry-level pricing, which is people that are freelancers, people from overseas, like, cheap contractors overseas, maybe your cousin's friend's auntie or someone's nephew or whatever, usually a newbie just starting out, and that is the early level of pricing. So they might charge you maybe $300, $500, $800 per month, maybe even $1,000 per month. Their skill level is low, but they're kind of building up their portfolio. Now, the pricing can vary depending on their confidence. Some people are outrageously confident, even though their talent is very low, but that's the kind of price point for more of an entry-level provider. One of the things I'll say on that is that I would say for most people, paying an entry-level provider is probably not gonna work for most businesses. They just don't have the skill level. It's a bit of a roll of the dice. You might have 1 in 100 contractors or providers at that level that you might get lucky and pay them not that much and they get great results. It is possible, but it's usually unlikely. I would say to most people at that level, either A, build up your revenue in other ways, word of mouth or other stuff that works, or just learn DIY. And we have DIY training as well. If you're interested in that, just check out our website, grow.com.au. But I think at that level, it's probably good for you just to understand your own marketing. And you typically at that earlier stage of business, and when you don't have much budget, but you have maybe a bit more time on your hands, it's probably worth you understanding a little bit of how to market. Even if you don't want to run it long term, it's a good idea for you to understand how it works and the basics of marketing, how to have great messaging, how to do good creative, how to communicate strong offers and all that sort of stuff. It's going to be stuff that pays dividends throughout your entire career or in the entire duration of your business, regardless of whether you want to do it long term. It will pay off, and it'll also help you work better with a future agency because you kind of understand a little bit about what you're talking about. It's sort of like knowing a bit about your car when you take it to the mechanic. You don't want to do the work, but it's good to understand how it all works so that maybe you don't get screwed, or at least you know how to have a higher level conversation with them to get a better outcome. The next level is the mid-tier. So typically, in Australia, it's common for people to charge somewhere between $1,500, $2,000, $2,500 per month in management fees alone. This is typically for paid ads, Google ads, Facebook ads, that sort of thing. SEO retainers are quite often around that sort of level for a somewhat decent provider. Now, there can be a huge amount of variation here. You can have some people that charge $1,500 and work their ass off for you, and you can have some people that charge $5,000 and $10,000 a month, and they're honestly not that good. So I'm not going to name names, but there are some big agencies out there that charge an absolute arm and a leg. I actually get quite a lot of their clients after they've burnt them, and they just charge crazy money because of their big name out in the market. But the reality is, they're not that good. Typically here, I would say, is a bit of a sweet spot for value. You're kind of getting enough, you're paying enough because you got to understand, if you are only paying someone $500 a month or $1,000 a month, once you take out tax, you're taking out your GST or all your costs, all the expenses that they have, software costs, all that sort of stuff, they're left with only maybe a few $100, maybe $300 in profit after that. And you got to understand, if they have 10 clients, they're not making that much money, and no self-respecting, talented marketer is going to be working for that kind of money. So at some level, they're not making that much money, which is a bad sign, because either A, they can't service you properly and it needs to be like a high volume operation, or B, they might be subcontracting that work out to really cheap, even cheaper providers than that. So they might be charging you $1,000 a month, but then having someone that only costs them $100 a month, which they're allowed to do, but you got to understand that they might be projecting that they're going to deliver some high level service, but then the actual stuff that they give you is a lot less. The mid-level tier is kind of good because you know that, I generally believe in paying people for, what they're worth and paying for a quality provider. I think that's always a better way to approach it, because at the end of the day, I don't believe it's about optimizing for fee. Fee is a factor for sure, but I don't want to optimize for fees. I want to optimize for results. Some people think that they save money when they pay a provider that's maybe $1,500 instead of $2,500. And yes, you are saving there, but what's the skill loss that you've just had, which is almost definitely going to happen when you're only paying for a cheaper provider. So that is something to keep in mind when you're picking someone. Some people are a bit more like an accountant, or they're just looking at the cost only, but you can't look at cost without looking at potential upside and results. And this probably applies to all different tiers of pricing. You can have someone that I've had clients where we've charged them, $100,000 over the course of a year, but we've made them $2 million. So for me, I'm actually undercharging for some of that stuff. And I'll talk about some other pricing models aside from flat fee retainers in this video as well. I would say in most cases, if you're paying sort of $2,200, $2,500, even $3,000-ish a month, you should be expecting someone that is decent to quite good. Most businesses would probably sit in this zone. And I guess the main thing here is also for paid ads. So for SEO, it's a flat retainer. One thing with SEO is you kind of pay a flat retainer so it can feel cheaper in the short term, but also the results come a lot later. So you need to understand that if you are a business that needs leads now, that SEO, it can work early, but typically, 6, 12 months before it really starts compounding. So sometimes you can invest 2K over 24 months, over 12 months and spend 24K, and you might start getting some results off the back of that later. And it can snowball quite dramatically, but it's important to keep that in mind in terms of your expectations, because if you are spending a certain amount and you need to see an ROI quicker, sometimes it's better to spend a little bit more, pay for ads management and ad spend, and you would get results quicker and you can multiply your cash faster as well. But you do pay a little bit extra for that privilege and acceleration. But I find these days, everybody's a little bit impatient and they want results now, which is fair enough. And you just gotta keep that in mind when you're also picking your digital marketing agency service, that you're picking a service that it's possible to get results quicker, because sometimes it's more important that you multiply your money quicker rather than, sometimes it's good to build the SEO stuff in the background, but you need to understand that you're not gonna spend $2,000 and get results first, second, third month. It's possible, but many agencies won't promise that because stuff can take time. You always get quick wins. However, the big results come over time. Another factor here is as your ad spend, for most businesses, if you're paying them $2-3 a month in a retainer, many of them, if you're spending a few more grand on the ad spend, they often won't charge a percentage of ad spend on top. But for most businesses, as soon as you start to, some businesses, regardless of your spend, will charge a flat fee, maybe $1,500, $2,000, $2,500, $3,000, and then they will add 8% or like a percentage of spend, typically like 7, 8, 9, 10% of the spend. Some are outside of that, but that's probably the most common. We charge 8%. But basically, the reason for that is that an account spending $10,000 a month versus $100,000 a month is a dramatically different amount of work and responsibility. So I learned this the hard way. I had a client that went from spending $2,000 per month on ads to we got up to $60,000 a month in spend, and they were making a lot of money, and they were very, very happy. However, from my perspective, I made the mistake of not charging a scalable fee that was commensurate with the amount of work that I was doing. So lesson learned, but that's kind of why some people say, why do I have to pay a percentage? It's because they're not the same thing. And sometimes that can actually be a sign of a maybe a less experienced agency if they don't realize that. Some businesses will never spend more than 10K a month on ad spend. Like they might start at 2 and work their way up to 5 and then 10, and maybe they're just tapped out their local area. So there's no real benefit to going to bigger spend levels. There's no room, there's no further opportunity. Whereas if you're like a nationwide business or you service people online, there's infinite potential scale. So you could very possibly go from spending 5 to 10 to 60, as long as it's of course profitable. And quite often in terms of the billing, they might do a retainer flat fee where they bill that at the start of the month, and then at the end of the month they calculate the spend often down to the cent. Well, that's what we do, and then there's a separate. You have usually a card on file, and it will bill that the variable amount at the end of the month. Now, in terms of the third category of spend, in terms of how much you can spend with the marketing agency, it's probably around like the 5 to 10K plus per month mark. Now, this is typically, you'd hope, for a high-level agency, usually multiple people working on your stuff, or very, very experienced people working on your stuff. Maybe you're working. Maybe the founder is across the work that you're doing. You're not just palmed off to some lackey, and often they've worked with big brands. Often you yourself are a big brand at that point, or at least you're doing, several $1 million minimum in revenue by that point. I think to keep in mind here, maybe this is a bit of a shot at the PR industry, but I notice a lot of PR companies that charge 5, 10K a month straight off the bat. I feel like they charge outrageous money for what many of them do, which is not much in terms of revenue generation. They get you in some articles, and many of those articles do not deliver short-term or any term financial results. And I think that industry is a bit of bullshit at sometimes. A good PR agency is worth every penny. However, there's a lot of shitty ones out there. I think especially in PR, maybe it's a good thing for them that they're confident to charge crazy money for, visibility. But a lot of it, I just know people. I've had people come to me that they've spent 10, 20, 50, 100 grand with a PR agency. They've been in some big media, and it just hasn't translated to sales. And it can be a big waste of money. But typically at that level, you should be expecting very high level service. People that really understand your business, they're integrated in your business, they really know everything, they're taking the time to learn, and they're very, very good at what they do. Sometimes the risk, however, is you deal with an agency that maybe has a really big reputation. They work with all these big brands that you may recognize, but one of the tricky things that can happen is you can actually be in a situation where you're paying like top dollar, but you're not actually dealing with the highest level people within the business, and it still kind of goes to that 50K a year junior in the team that's actually managing and pushing all the buttons. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing, but for me, if someone's, we have clients that spend, 5, 7, 8, 10K a month with us, and I take that as a very serious commitment and something that should be respected, and they need to be getting the highest level of service that's commensurate with what they're paying. Now, that doesn't automatically happen just because you're spending the big bucks. So it's important just to understand, who's going to be working on my account. It's okay to have some juniors involved for the basic tasks, but ideally you're having someone quite senior, someone smart, experienced, overseeing it and driving the overall direction of your campaigns. And obviously they should have very good reviews, good case studies, that sort of thing. In terms of someone working with you that is they've worked with your industry, for example, that is sometimes helpful, but I would not say that is automatically the most important thing that you should look for. Very often there are, I know for me, just from working with hundreds and hundreds of industries over the years and different business, 1,000 plus businesses over the years, the best ones are the ones that are very, I always say to clients, if you know your industry inside out, then I can do what I need to do. So a good agency will be able to elicit that information from the client and have a process. They should always have a process for capturing the main, fears, frustrations, wants, and aspirations of their target customer, and being able to synthesize all of that and put that into really compelling ads or whatever the service that you're getting. So it's not necessarily, it can be advantageous, but I don't think that is the only factor that you should consider. Because a good agency can work with, I know for us, we can work with any business. As long as you know your customer really, really well, and I can have a chat to you about that, even potentially come out to see your business or speak to your clients, then I know that I can learn all about it. And for me, I actually love learning about different industries and different markets and products We only work with service-based businesses, but a good agency will be able to capture that information from you and really get into their heads and learn about it, and consequently deliver a strong marketing message to them. So I hope you found that useful. That's a bit of an overview and I guess an insider perspective of how much agencies can charge and how much you could end up paying and how to sort of navigate that. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. And this is our new marketing channel. We've got another separate channel on a different topic. But if you like this, feel free to subscribe, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video.